Hey everyone! So, another week, another chapter of My Hero Academia. This most recent chapter was put off because of Golden Week, but all the same, these chapters one after another are amazing. I gotta say, I love the direction My Hero Academia is headed in, and to be honest, I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen next. But that's all I'm gonna say right now. If you haven't read the chapter by now, be sure to read it and then head on back, because this video will contain spoilers. And if you're new to the bar, welcome! Be sure to subscribe to the channel and help keep the lights on here at the bar. And if you want to become one of my regulars, when you hit that notification bell, be sure to change your notifications from personalized to all. That way, you'll never miss out on a premiere here on the channel. But with that being said, let's go inside and grab ourselves a drink. Welcome to the bar, folks. So, chapter 311. This chapter is certainly crucial to the plot as it does something this series hasn't done before. Have a conversation about One for All without All Might and Deku present. Usually, the only two people prattling on about One for All's past is All Might, who for the most part is pretty much clueless about the vestiges, and Deku, who is more or less learning on the fly. So, to see the top three heroes rolling around fighting crime and on top of that discussing All for One in a very outside the box manner, it was a welcome sight to see. So, for this breakdown, we're going to focus on three aspects of Chapter 311 that I feel are the main takeaways, and they are the growing disdain for heroes, the top three's conversation about All for One, and Hottie Cronenberg on the hunt for Deku. So, let's head over to the wall and break down 311. Alright, so Chapter 311 starts out with Endeavor taking on some low-level villains who've been decked out into Turnat's support gear. And I guess now, after the whole attack on the Safety Commission, it's safe to say that Turnat is a villainous organization that is clearly out in the open. I mean, in the beginning, they were just this company that dealt in support armaments, but now, people know that Reed Destro is in league with, well, the League. So Reed Destro is following through with his end of the chaos by providing arms to low-level thugs to just become a nuisance to people like Endeavor. Anyways, that thought brings us to our first topic to talk about that takes place after their apprehension by the hands of Endeavor, the people of Japan. And when I tell you that they have had enough of heroes, when they save the day, the civilians roll up to point out to them that the only reason why they're in this situation and the only reason why it's gotten as bad as it is solely because of the effort of heroes. Not to mention, one of the big things that one of the civilians says is something that I've prattled on about for months, and it was that people aren't going to be so dumb when it comes to finding out the truth about who Shigaraki was truly after. Meaning now that the media is planting that seed, it's only a matter of time before Deku takes the main stage once again, unless he goes further underground. I feel the civilians kind of represent the readers at this point. A lot of us were kind of like, yo, the heroes really fucked up here. How are they gonna deal with this? And I gotta give a lot of credit to Horikoshi here, because he's writing the people's disdain perfectly. Even down to the people hitting Endeavor with the people don't forget when it comes to Dabi. This guy, for all intents and purposes, created the villain with the highest known civilian body count. Not hero body count, not really so much, but Dabi kills innocent people without thinking. It's what he does. It's what makes him a bad fucking dude. And before we move on, this kind of confused me, but anyone know if Endeavor's hero outfit changes from sleek to bulky? In the beginning of the chapter, he was like this, and after he got negged by the crowd, he was like this. So my working theory is that when he turns off his firepower, it causes his hero suit to collapse for mobility / hiding his flames from the rain. But if you have a reason as to why it might have changed, be sure to let me know down below. Anywho, let's move on to the car ride where most of the chapter's dialogue is done, because during this car ride, the pros discuss several hot topics, the first being Deku. They all mutually acknowledge that they're keeping their distance for the sake of Deku not being linked to them. Now, this decision comes with a detriment and a benefit. The detriment being all the heroes looking at Deku as bait, and the benefit being more distance between them, the less likely someone's gonna put two and two together. Additionally, the hottest of the topics during this car ride conversation is that of All for One. Now, this is kind of what I was talking about back over at the bar. This is the first time we really see anyone have a conversation about All for One without All Might and Deku present. And I gotta say, out of all of the heroes sitting in that car, Hawks is obviously the most most intuitive out of the bunch. I mean, at this point, all of us kind of knew it, but nobody really said it, and Hawks is the first person to really kind of verbalize that the reason why All For One can't steal One For All is because he's so sick and twisted. What All For One did to Shigaraki was a sincere act of villainous pettiness, and my guess is that Nana and All Might are the ones that are responsible for maiming All For One and putting the guy on feeding tubes. So after failing to take One For All on 2 separate occasions, he had to think of alternative methods because as he started killing successors, it turned out that they had already passed on the quirk. And we've already seen that when All For One wants to take Shigaraki's body, he will. And since All For One has created this being in Shigaraki that's so overwhelmed with an inhuman amount of hatred, his hatred actually might become the key to stealing One For All from Deku. And once Shigaraki steals One For All, his body is done. Though yeah, I do gotta say that I love the fact that it took somebody like Hawks to put 2 and 2 together and realize that this dude is always smiling, so he might not have all of his marbles. And during this car ride, they essentially deduce why All For One wants to steal Shigaraki's body with the information that Deku provided to them. But yeah, this section of the chapter wraps up with the hero stating that there's so much chaos going on in the city right now that it's hard to focus on several different tasks. So every new incursion that they experience causes them to become spread thin. So I think maybe in the coming months, reinforcements might be introduced to the plot. Maybe some of the vigilante variety, who knows, but that's just my headcanon trying to pull them in, you know. Either way, they're letting Deku act as human bait, and that shows us, the reader, that they're in the dark as much as we are, despite knowing the same amount we do now. Everybody has it in the back of their head that eventually a subordinate of All For One is going to catch wind of Deku and try to deal with them, which brings us to the final part of the chapter. The villain that I am dubbing Hadi Cronenberg. Essentially, the final part of the chapter is All Might discovering that Deku's radio communication has gone dead. The reason why is that we see simultaneously a villain has appeared and sniped Deku's communications. But prior to that scene, All Might remarks that Deku has been fighting non-stop and really hasn't gotten any rest. I don't know if the mention of him being running on empty is kind of a notion that, hey, Deku might lose this fight, but if anything, it's kind of sweet karma for someone like All Might. All Might has kind of inadvertently drilled this persona of working till you drop onto Deku. And All Might's driven determination and lack of care of his own body led to his own undoing. So for the first time ever, he's standing on the sidelines and understands how Night Eye felt when he would just go out without proper rest. Though the chapter ends with Hadi Cronenberg sniping out Deku's communications and saying that he's going to be coming with her. Now this scene is pretty damn hype because you can feel the adrenaline in Deku's words. He's ready. He's wanted someone that actually has ties to All For One to come for him. But we gotta break this scene down a little bit more and just kind of analyze her aesthetic. Okay, so first things first, she comes at Deku in a cocky but tactical manner. It wasn't just taking out his communications, she also took out the means for everybody to track down Deku and see where he was. Secondly, we don't know from how far away she sniped, because right now if I would say anything, it's that she's underestimated Deku's speed and strength, though her gun does look like a 50 caliber sniper rifle ripped out of a Junji Ito novel. So the big question is, we'll have to see if she can reconfigure for mid-range and close-range combat, because if she can turn people into guns or people into weapons in general, we'll have to see how Deku analyzes her quirk to go on the offensive. This villain is a complete 180 for muscular, and despite being a sniper, she didn't stay hidden, and the first bullet wasn't even like a shrapnel bomb or whatever it was. Instead, it provided radio communication to Deku, which makes me possibly believe that Hadi Cronenberg could not be fond of the fact that All For One chose her to be the messenger. So this could go a few different ways. She's been a prisoner for God knows how long and possibly wants to stay free, so she might dry snitch a little bit to keep Deku off of her tail, or a full-blown fight might just erupt and we're gonna see what this chick can really do. She threatened to blow off Deku's limbs and explicitly said, "Come with me, not come with me so I can give you to All For One." So the one thing that I can say is that there is truly an ulterior motive for this woman. And it is also very clear that she is a villain that kills people. I mean, look at the guy laying there armless. My guess is he didn't voluntarily have his arms removed to become a gigantic cannon. So I'm really looking forward to the next chapter because I really want to know what the hell's up with their quirk, because we've seen that there are people out there who can take people's bodies and manipulate them. The question is, can she revert people back to the forms that they were previously in? So yeah, that's chapter 311. Now, if I were to predict anything for chapter 312, I would say that it is sincerely a possibility that Deku will encounter more villains that had spotlights shown on them during the jailbreak. like. So far, we've only seen Hottie Cronenberg and Muscular, which leaves Moonfish, Stain, and Overhaul left to be seen. I do think that it's possible Stain comes to the aid of Deku still, because now that Deku lacks any communication, he's on his own. So I think Horikoshi's main objective of killing Deku's communications and the means to track him is just to have Deku act on his own for a little while. Mostly what we've seen over the course of the past couple of chapters is Deku acts and then All Might rolls up. And I guess it was kind of foreshadowed in the heroes earlier in the chapter saying we gotta put a little bit more distance in between them and Deku. So I think there's a sincere possibility in the coming chapters we might see Deku make some less than desirable allies. Because there's definitely going to be some villains that do not want to be under the thumb of All For One, but they do want to remain free. And it would be fun to see Deku and Stain team up with Deku saying, fine, we'll team up, but no killing. And I gotta say it now, I am really enjoying the direction that My Hero Academia has been taking in the past couple of months. Since the jailbreak, it feels like an entirely different series. And I like how the story has changed to a certain degree, but still has stayed true to what it really does best. And by excluding all of the students back at UA, they've done something very unique, which is taking Deku and making him more of an independent hero. And by giving him more independence, what this potentially does is help Deku expand his circle of trust and bring in new faces to help fill out the story. I mean, imagine if Ida and Todoroki find out that Deku is working with Stain. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this breakdown of Chapter 311. If any of my thoughts helped create some of your own theories, be sure to leave it in the comments down below. And if you think Hottie Cronenberg has any ulterior motives, be sure to let me know down below as well. Because if she really just wanted to bring in Deku, why not just snipe his arm off along with the communicator? I mean, All For One doesn't necessarily need Deku in one piece in order to take One For All. And if she brought in a severely wounded Deku, it would probably be a lot easier to strip One For All from him. So I think the main objective of this chapter was stripping radio communication away from Deku in one way or another, just for Horikoshi to enact phase 1 of his plan, which essentially is creating a more independent Deku that has to act on his own. And if Deku does possibly get beaten by her, there's a chance that we might be introduced to a whole new faction of people, rather villains, that might be against All For One. We've seen that despite being a villain and a jailbreaker, she does have compassion for fellow people, considering she was the one that let Overhaul out of his jail cell because he was armless. So it's safe to say that there could be villains out there that have grudges against All For One. But that's enough of my rambling. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button. But for now, I gotta give this monitor some rest. I'll catch y'all later. Cheers!